welcome to this week's Penny Skelton Show. This week's an interesting one because we have a facility, I think it's a facility, and programs in our community known as My Friend's House. And I'm very pleased to have Alison Fitzgerald here, and someone who helps to raise money and believes in My Friend's House in Chris Keleher. He's going to be doing something really interesting or stupid, depending on how you think about it. But he's going to raise money for My Friend's House. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
So Alison, My Friend's House is?
Yeah, so My Friend's House is a shelter for abused women, but we're more than just a shelter.
Okay.
We provide counseling and support to abused women and their children who live in the Georgian Triangle area.
Okay. And we've been here since?
We've been here since 1991, and I've been with the organization since 1992.
Interesting. Now, Mr. Keleher, who are you?
I am Chris Keleher. I run a little real estate company here in town.
Okay.
But more importantly, I have been involved with the shelter for My Friend's House, but also our company, LePage, is the only real estate company in Canada that has their own charity.
Okay.
And it is women's shelters, helping support women's shelters across Canada, but they also have their own shelter foundation to help educate people. Mostly they want to educate and inform people and make people aware of just how prevalent this is in all of our communities.
So Royal LePage, right across the country.
Yep.
How do they get funding for their foundation?
Well, one of the big things they do is commission donations.
Okay.
And countless agents of the 20,000 plus in the company donate a certain amount. You can donate $5 or $50 or $500 per commission check you get. That's one of the main things they do. 5 years ago, not 5 years, it would be 10 years ago now, because it's our fifth shelter foundation hike that we're doing, the trek. They began doing these one-off adventures for 120 lucky Royal LePagers.
Okay.
They get to go and hike something very creative from Machu Picchu to what we're doing this year in Ecuador. So I believe there's many other levels for which they are raising money in terms of all the events each of us do individually, like Marcia in our town and part of my team has done lots of things. So there's lots of ways. So there's motorcycle rides, there's treks, there's so many things that get done to raise the over 40 million they've raised since the inception of the Shelter Foundation.
Since the shelter. Now, Alison, My Friend's House. We are coming out of this little thing called COVID.
Yes.
And I can only imagine your numbers. Not only was there a demand for your services, but I'm sure the number of calls increased.
Absolutely, they did. What I found most significant at the beginning of COVID and throughout is that the number of women calling our crisis line and reporting physical assaults actually increased by 40%.
Wow.
And so on average, we take 1,500 crisis calls per year.
Okay.
So if you imagine those that report increasing, that's a huge number.
Yeah.
So certainly the stress of COVID and people being quarantined,
locked at home
exacerbated the issue for sure. And what was really challenging for us, especially in the beginning days, is that because of having to distance, is that for a brief period of time, we actually had to shut down the shelter, and we had to move really quickly to find an alternative way to provide shelter until we figured out how to restructure our own shelter. And so actually folks at the Royal LePage,
make everything safe.
Exactly, and folks at Royal LePage,
I didn't think of that.
No, none of us did. It was over a 24-hour period that we realized that we can't operate right now. So we called Royal LePage, Locations North actually, and they managed to find us vacation properties that weren't being used that we were able to rent so that we could maintain shelter in the early days. And then we were able to restructure our shelter. But we had to go from a 12-bed shelter down to an 8-bed shelter for a year. And so can you imagine, calls are increasing, requests for our shelter beds are increasing, yet we had to actually decrease our numbers. So it was an incredibly trying time for everybody. Again, it's still getting emotional about it because it was hard. However, we were able to get back up to a 12-bed shelter, and we're operating at that level right now, but we're still turning away.
I was about to say, is 12 beds enough?
Yeah, the demand has not gone down. And the number of reports of actual violence has not gone down. We're, I think, at a crisis point. And so My Friend's House is looking at creative ways to respond to the demand in different ways, because our shelter beds are not going to increase, at least not in the short term. And
or even in the near term.
Well, neither in the near term, but we actually have a team of board members because we recognized through COVID in that we were significantly impacted and our shelter cannot sustain. And so we have a team of board members and we're working with a consultant right now to actually look at an expansion.
Okay.
We're just in the midst of doing a feasibility study, and that's a tad bit a ways away for us. And so right now what we have to do is find ways to respond to abused women and their children in a different way to make sure that they're safe and to make sure that they have the supports they need.
Yeah, you still need to provide the core programming.
You do,
as well as planning for the future.
Exactly.
As well as communicating with the community and doing the PR piece.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think I'm hitting them all.
Yeah. But also like that makes me think about when you say it's increasing, there is a part of me that wants those calls to increase because of the number of people that don't want to speak up for what's happening.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
there's that awareness piece, and I'm hoping that through more awareness that these programs exist, I think there's 180 to 200 of these across Canada, will alleviate the need for the beds, because the beds mean it is crisis at home.
Exactly.
There could be threats or fear or something like that that are preceding actual violence.
Exactly.
And those sort of things with the violence doesn't have to be physical. It's just
I was about to
it's
say
almost
there
torturous.
are
I would
many,
think, right?
many types of abuse.
Oh, there are.
Of the abuse,
There
right?
are.
So the awareness, raising the awareness, I hope will open the doors, and that's what the LePage Shelter Foundation nationally mainly wants to do. If we can raise that awareness and people can just make that call
Exactly.
and say a few things and feel more comfortable and not feel like they're alone, that alone I think is going to make a difference and hopefully lower the need for beds. Because
Exactly.
people are being more brave, they're able to talk to family and friends, they're able to find other outs for this.
It's true.
And not feel like they're alone.
It's
And I think,
true.
and it feels to me like that's the biggest problem is they feel alone and scared in speaking.
And they don't know what to do, and that's where our outreach programming is so important, because you don't have to be in shelter in order to receive our services. We really want people to know that.
You're kind of a well-known secret, but unless we as a human need you,
Exactly.
we don't really know what you offer.
Exactly. So women can.
And you're not a sexy charity either.
No, we're not.
You're not.
We're not.
Because you're dealing
we're
with
not
the
puppies and
you're dealing with the
cuddly
underside
things at
of
all.
life.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't want to look at that.
No.
But what's so important about our outreach program is that women who are in abusive relationships can still work with us, and we can provide counseling and support so they can help sort of recognize that this is not their fault, they are not the cause of it, and understand that they do have the strength to be able to move.
There are many other factors.
Yes.
Exactly. And then we have our transitional housing and outreach program where we can work with women to help them sort of plan the practical side of leaving an abusive relationship and start searching for search for a new apartment to live in, make sure that they're attached to income support so that they're able to pay last month's rents, all of those things. We have so many different programs in our shelter where women can actually plan to leave with actually not having to use our shelter in order to get out. And as you said, that's crisis. That's like, I have no option.
Or I'm sitting on the floor and my arm's broken and I have a big bruise on the right side of my face and I can't take it anymore.
I tell my colleagues I had another fall or something like that, right? So I think those things is, and I also think, and obviously you know this far better than I do, that there's probably a lot of people that say to themselves, well, this isn't really abuse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Stacey's getting thrown down the
is
stairs or whatever, or roughed up. And I think that more importantly, the threat of violence or whatever that verbal abuse is, I think having the knowledge that my friend's house is there for that as well. Like you don't have to be in the severe location in your life.
No, you don't.
To say my situation is so severe that I need to ask for help. If we can get out in front of it more often and let people know in the community how much it's valued to get more donations.
Exactly.
But how important it is, but also let people know, just get out in front of it, have a conversation.
Exactly.
Figure out what your options are.
There is help out there. There absolutely is help out there. And that if somebody knows that or think that they know somebody who is abused, is that they can also call our crisis line and ask for help around how can I approach this person? How can I talk to them? How
What's
can
the
I offer
conversation
help?
I have?
What's the conversation, right? And our staff are there 24/7. They're happy to take those calls and give advice and strategy around how to approach the topic, because most women would be reticent to realize that the secret is out, because that can be really scary. So it's important to talk to our
Life
staff
can
about
change
that.
dramatically when the secret is out.
It can. That's
for
why we
many
have,
people.
and that's why we have shelters, right? Is that women are more at risk of being murdered if the partner knows that they're planning on leaving, thinking about leaving, or that they have just left. That's when women are being murdered. And the two women who have been murdered in our community a couple of years ago now,
in the last 2 years,
both of
18
them
months.
were ending their relationship.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing none of us have mentioned, which is a really underbelly side of society when we come to abuse, is the effect on children in a home.
Absolutely.
When you have an abuse in a home, whether it's daddy talking to mommy or mommy talking to daddy, because it goes both ways.
Yeah.
What's patterned for the kids when they're young is what they think is normal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's what they think when they go to school and their friends go, that's what happens in my friend's home.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And it's training children to have a corrupt way of dealing with other human beings.
Without the realization.
Without the
They might even know
they
that
don't
they're
know.
in a short-tempered way, in a frustrated way, dealing with challenges in their life.
Yeah.
That's something that they will see and learn to deal with these frustrations without that knowledge. And I think it's really important that we think about those children in this.
Yeah,
In the women, it
absolutely.
is a women's shelter, but it's women and children. in
It's
these
women
places,
and
right? So-
children. Yes.
Yeah, I always like to tell the story. It was from a number of years ago, but it still sits with me today. And we were running a children's group, and we had a male and female co-facilitator for the children's group. And there was this one kid. I always get emotional. I get emotional a lot. There was this one little boy who started to get emotional and upset, and the male facilitator asked him what he was crying about, and he said he didn't want to be a man. Because being a man meant that he had to be violent, that he had to be mean, and this kid...
That's what he patterned.
That's what he patterned, that's what he saw, that's what he believed, and we were able to say, but you like me, don't you?
Yeah.
Am I mean?
Yeah.
You can be something different, right? And having those role models in their lives was incredibly important. Yeah.
Home is the place that's supposed to be safe. You're supposed to be loved, and you're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be.
And feel comfortable, right? And that's where I was mentioning to you off air before, that one of the, I get emotional too,
Okay.
from time to time. Erica knows that. But just really that, you know, the more I had conversations with friends, even prior to getting involved actually in the trek, that I walk through an underground parking lot differently than you might. And I don't check in my back seat at 11 p.m. or anything like that. What was elevating it to me even before we had these tragedies in our community is that there are women that the fear of 11 p.m. underground parking back seat happens going home.
Yeah.
And that's really like, that really like
Absolutely.
clicked for me to think about, imagine that was the
Imagine
fear you
living
had
in
at
fear.
home.
Yeah.
And then the fear escalates because, as you just mentioned, when I decide I'm done with this fear, it begins to get worse.
Yeah.
That's when it actually becomes a crisis if you decide I need
Exactly.
out. So how do we find that out? How do we find the protection? How do we get them to speak up? Because I think there's also a side of it of not only what do I do, but maybe even feeling embarrassed about this is what's happening in my life.
sure.
Now,
So
I
not
have,
wanting to
I have
talk
promised
to people.
you that the hour is going to go quickly, but we're up to our first break. So
Okay.
join us when we come back, and you're going to understand better what Chris means by his trek.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
On Rogers TV, we have a reality show like no other. It has a great cast of characters. Some you may have even helped land the role. Each episode has something different. Plans are devised, decisions are made, votes are cast, and money is spent. It's local reality TV that you won't want to miss. And it's exclusive to Rogers Cable customers. Catch your municipal council coverage on Rogers TV. Visit rogerstv.com for broadcast details.
What kind of show do you want to see on Rogers TV? What interests you? Log on to rogerstv.com, fill out a show proposal, and tell us about your segment idea. We want to know what you want to see. Rogers TV, only on Rogers.
Welcome back. This week I'm in conversation with Alison Fitzgerald, the executive director of My Friend's House, and Chris Keleher from Keleher Co, our local Royal LePage locations north?
Nope.
Royal LePage.
Yes.
Okay. Chris Keleher and
RCR.
Company. Okay, good. We got too many real estate companies in town. That's one thing. But this is a super
There's
duper
only
one.
one important one.
This is a super duper important
Got
one.
2 thumbs and looks like me.
So the one thing that's interesting is Royal LePage is, as a corporation, believes in women's shelters.
Yes.
And as a result, you're going to do something unique. You are one of 120
Yes.
from across Canada that's in training
Yep.
to go trekking.
To embark on a little adventure.
And this is a fundraising endeavor too.
It is. It is
Okay.
mainly a fundraising endeavor.
Okay.
This is 100% funded by the trekkers.
Okay.
Depending on where you live and what your flights are and all the
Okay.
stuff, the cost is, I
Okay.
would say, $7,000 plus minus
Okay.
to even beyond the trek.
Okay.
So that's cost we have to incur.
Okay. So where are you going?
We are going to Ecuador.
Okay.
The live volcano we will be hiking is called Cotopaxi.
Cotopaxi. Okay.
And we will be, I believe they're almost 6,000 feet in elevation total, but we're going to be hiking around 4,000 meters in elevation.
Okay.
For the hike, 5 days, 100
Of
kilometers.
hiking?
5 days
Trekking.
hiking,
Okay.
100 kilometers.
Okay.
And it'll be, I think the elevation will be the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Really will. You're going to find it.
I will find this out.
You.
I'll
Yeah. You
probably sleep
when
like a
you,
baby
when,
every
when
night.
you
I
start
wonder.
huffing and puffing, or slowing down.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder about sleeping, in a tiny little tent on a volcano for so many nights.
As long as there's a
realize
volcano watcher.
I'll be exhausted,
Yes. Yeah.
and I'll probably sleep like a baby, and it'll be great.
Yes. Well, you will be roughing it. You're choosing to rough it to raise money, and so
And awareness.
and awareness.
I want to
Okay.
make that clear. This
Okay.
is about raising the awareness of
Okay.
how prevalent this is in all the communities across Canada, and how much we just need people to feel the courage to speak up when they're in the situation and to know they have a safe place to go.
Okay. So you have a target.
Yes.
I gather each broker or person going has their own target.
So we have in order to be accepted, you have to be confident that you can raise $6,000.
Okay.
So there's a couple things with that.
Okay.
So first of all, the Royal LePage Shelter Foundation doesn't have administrative fees. So
Okay.
any dollars given to the Royal LePage Shelter Foundation
Okay.
goes straight to raising awareness and to the Shelter Foundation.
Okay.
Administrative fees are paid by Royal LePage Corporate.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
increases the amount that actually goes.
Yes.
Many charities have, you give $100
It's-
and then $30 goes
that's right.
here and this goes here.
Do you know, I once had a friend whose mother decided one day to research all the charitable places she could donate her money. She landed and she put it in her will. All her money was to go to Leprosy Canada
Oh,
because they had a 1% admin fee.
I think that's super important.
Yes.
And it's like,
But I mean, some of them could be 30, 40, 45%.
absolutely. And really,
Yeah.
you can't hold that against the charity because
Nope.
that means they're paying people good
To
money
do the work.
to do good work.
Yep.
So these can't all be without administration fees. This is just a benefit of the Royal LePage Shelter Foundation. And then in terms of the Trek fundraising, $6,000 is the minimum,
Okay.
and you're not allowed just to pay it yourself.
No,
You
can't
need
write
to
a check.
Go out there and raise the money.
Right.
And my goal is $20,000 personally.
Okay.
As a group, the 120 have raised over $1 million so far this year.
Wow.
So that's
Okay.
pretty great. The bar was raised a little bit. We have a great realtor and person out in Winnipeg, Chris
Okay.
Pennycook.
Okay.
I believe the trek 2 years ago, he raised $120,000 personally,
Wow.
which is
Okay.
pretty insane. Right?
So
everyone's trying to up their game a little bit.
This is a real fundraiser. We give charitable receipts because it's simply cash.
Anything
for,
above $20, you
Okay.
can get a charitable receipt.
That's
yes.
pretty standard these days.
Yeah.
How do we give you money? We're not sponsoring you. We're just giving you money.
Yes, and that's the difference. I don't think when
Yeah,
people say sponsor, they think they're paying for me to go.
Yeah.
Even some of my
Or
close friends have said, I'll help pay for you to go on this, hike.
Or
and
per
stuff.
kilometer that you're hiking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have Royal LePage has set up. I don't know if this is on the
There we
screen
go.
right now or whatnot,
Yes.
but keleherco.ca/making a difference. That will lead you to my personal donation
Okay.
page.
Okay.
There's probably also a great donation page directly to my friend's
Yes.
house. You can quickly
Yep.
Google it.
Yep.
It says donate
Yep.
now.
Yep.
So there's a couple ways to donate through me and support this trek. And my goal for $20,000, where 80% will stay here in my friend's house and 20 will go nationally to the Shelter Foundation. But yes, quick link. And yeah, just go to my website, watch our social media, watch the things we're posted. You'll see a lot of donate links. And they made it pretty easy to donate.
Okay.
And we are really looking forward to working together with you and our community, getting
And-
ourselves to 20,000.
What if, do we stop if we hit 20?
Absolutely not. Alison knows this is not stopping.
Keep going. Yes.
We could overachieve. We had to set a goal, though.
Yes, I set a goal that was a little loftier than the 6,000,
Yep.
but also reasonable enough that I know I have a group of people around me, 120 people
Yep.
also contributing. So if I try to do the Chris Penny Cook 120 and everyone does, it would be brilliant for the
It
foundations.
would be.
Yeah.
It would
But
be.
also,
Yeah.
it could leave us saying, "Oh, you've only raised 35% of your goal,"
Yeah.
where we raised 25 grand or something,
Yeah.
which is not so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you each have your own goals, and you know what your communities can rise to the challenge for.
Absolutely, and some Royal LePages have done this 5 years in a row, or five. It's
Okay.
every 2 years,
Okay.
5 treks in a row.
Okay.
And I have a reputable business company that I ask almost daily
Yeah.
to contribute money to a particular organization. We have to
Yeah.
select. We have to narrow it down and
Oh,
say
yeah.
we can't give money to everybody all the time. So which charities mean something to us? And this is one that obviously does. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're doing this, you don't want to be asking your community members all the time, nonstop. You're in the business.
Absolutely.
You
yeah.
got to find a way to make this a valuable, meaningful donation
Okay.
for people, without just you have money, give it to
Yeah.
me. You have some money,
Yeah.
give it to me. You should have some money, give it to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, the trek is happening when? In early November?
So this year, there's 5 groups, which I guess is 30 per group.
Okay.
See, I did that math very quickly. in my head
Very well
there.
done.
And we're all leaving 2 days apart. So I actually arrive in
Oh,
Ecuador
okay.
on the 10th, and we leave on the 12th.
And you start your trek.
Yes, so the
Okay.
12th to the 19th we'll do
So
the
you'll
trek.
be moving in a group of 30.
We're moving in group of 30, yes.
Okay. That's a lot better than everybody going and pitching tents, and well, there wouldn't be enough room.
I think it all depends on where the hike is and
Yeah.
what it all looks
Okay.
like and what the
That too makes sense.
There's also these are companies that Royal LePage works with that are organized. So this isn't just for charity things. This could be
Yeah.
like 5 buddies that go out
Yeah.
and want to do this
Yeah.
for an adventure, and they're
Yeah.
not raising any money.
Yeah.
So
okay.
they're just trekking organizations that
Okay.
create this, facilitate this, create the
Okay.
camps, and help you with
Okay.
your
Somebody's looking after the details
somebody's looking after details
that
for us.
gets you from point A to point B.
Yes, we just have a list of things we need to purchase, make sure we have.
Yep. Interesting. So, what do you know of the culture? What do you know of the people? What do you know? Is it a different language?
Yes, well, we're obviously going to Ecuador. We're going to be working in Spanish, but I'm pretty sure it'll be all English. I'm pretty sure we won't be interacting too much with the culture. We do have 1 day of touring the city before we
Okay.
go. I think that's just
Okay.
acclimatizing us. They want everyone to be there a bit early
Yeah.
to acclimatize.
And get to
stuff
know
like
each
that.
other too.
Get to know each
if
other.
if you haven't met before.
So, and there's another thing. So we all have WhatsApp chats
Okay.
because some of these people in my group I've met before in various conferences. Royal
Yep.
LePage also has an incredible network of people and many events, from a President's Cup golf thing every year, motorcycle tours every year, this trek every year, a Royal LePage National Conference.
Which is kind of amazing because it's a big country.
It's a big country, but it's a big company. But
Yeah.
I think their main retention strategy is getting the right people in this
Yep.
organization that love gathering together
Yep.
on an annual basis
Yeah.
in many ways. And this is one of the things, it's great, there's some people that I've not met
Yeah.
that are on my trek.
Yeah.
There's many of my closest friends that are coming on the trek, but not in my group.
Yeah.
Right, so they do a really good job. Royal LePage has done an amazing job on all levels of the organization to create the camaraderie and the same culture and values that we all share in the real estate community. So I think it's going to be an exceptional trip.
And the corporate culture to raise money for your community too.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you do other things, you as Keleher and Company do other things during the year
Absolutely.
that raise money. You just did a fall, not fiesta, but
the fall festival.
Festival.
We've done that 9 years now. We've never raised money for anything. All of the events that I've done, from TEDx, Collingwood, Fall Festival,
Right.
Movie Morning, those events are free to the community, and they are to give back to the community and celebrate
Okay.
the collaborative nature of our community, our businesses, and the members of the community. So this was the first year where we asked for some donations. I believe we were close to $1,000 in donations from our event. But generally, we don't do that. We would like to see those things be free, but then we donate to other events that we go to and things of that nature.
Interesting.
From another angle. So
another corporate strategy.
another corporate side. Many times I personally get invited to an event and they're like, we'd love you to come to this amazing event we have. Also, if you could put some money right here. Which is unique, because outside of just going to those events, we contribute a lot to the Georgia Triangle Humane Society, to Bowls for Beds, to my friend's house. So we have these organizations, the New Farm every year.
Okay.
Those events that we like to give back to. We did a lot for Rotary when it came to what's the Rotary dinner in the park?
Taste of the Town.
Taste of the Town.
Taste of the Town. Okay.
They've moved that now.
Okay.
It's not in the park anymore. It's at a ski club. So that has shifted. But I want to make these community events for everyone without, hey, thanks for coming, and also
Yeah, here's
nudge,
some money.
nudge, nudge.
However, we're up to our next break, and
that was fast.
guess what? We are talking about some money, but this is for Chris's trek. So join us when we come back after the break.
I don't care what the law is. I will never be a slave. That word, I hate it. It rests on my tongue like rot.
Peter, how does it feel to get paid for your work?
There are rumors freedom's coming for us all.
Freedom, you know that's all I want.
Chloe, careful. Vroom men would rather sell you across the river to America than let you go free.
Then I'll run.
I've run before. Maybe this time for good.
No! Just get her into the boat. No!
Chloe! Chloe, no!
Word of Chloe Cooley's resistance led to Canada's first legislation limiting slavery. After 200 years, slavery was abolished in Canada in 1834.
Welcome back. This week we're talking about a serious topic, which is abuse in our local women's shelter, women and children's shelter, I should say. And we've got Alison Fitzgerald, the executive director, and we have Chris Keleher, who is with Royal LePage locally, Keleher and Company, but also strongly believes in what My Friend's House represents, is doing, and shares with the community. So you're trekking in Ecuador to raise $20,000, of which 80% will go to My Friend's House, that you can use for what?
We can use for operating. That's what's one of the amazing things about the Royal LePage Shelter Foundation, is that they don't specify what we have to use it for. So we can put it right exactly where we need it.
It comes without any strings.
Exactly.
Okay. We need to raise you more than 20.
Penny, if you can help me beat 20, that would be incredible.
I think we should, because the one thing I do know about shelters, when you get government funding and some other organizations funding, it comes with what I call strings.
Yes.
It must be used for this. It cannot be used for this. So to get a bucket of money coming in that you can apply where you need it the most has to be a gift from
our community.
From your community.
Yeah, from our community.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It's our community that sustains us. It really, we are funded by the Ministry of Community and Social Services.
Okay.
They provide us just over $600,000 annually to maintain our programs. And when I started doing this work a couple of years ago, they funded our organization about 75% of our operating costs.
Right.
The funding levels have not gone up from the province at all, and so now what the ministry funds us is less than 50%.
Yeah.
And so because their funding doesn't go up as the costs of running an organization go up, we have to increase our ask to the community, and that's why a trek like this is so incredibly important, because literally we would not be open if it wasn't for our community.
Yeah.
I think that is a good way to transition into, because I think we talked about this off camera, is just how much the last few years of what I like to refer to as the pandy, because it makes it sound nicer and not as PTSD.
I'm not sure we can make it sound nice, but I kind of like it.
But just how much those lockdowns have increased the need, have increased the phone calls, have increased the demand for beds, while also during the pandemic and lockdowns decreasing the number of beds.
Absolutely.
So I think it would be great for you to say a little bit about how that has impacted your organization and what the increase in needs are today.
Absolutely. So the demand for our services in terms of requests for shelter beds and requests for outreach programming has gone up. But what we've seen is more women who are significantly traumatized by the abuse in their lives. And so we've had to adjust our programming in order to respond to that. And so now one of the new programs that we're running right now, and it's not funded by the Ministry of Community and Social Services, but we know there's an absolute need for it, is that we have a mental health wellness program. And so we have a wellness coordinator. And what we do is an assessment with every single woman who crosses our path, whether it's in shelter or through our outreach programs, and we determine what their status is in terms of their mental health and wellness. Because most women who come to our shelter and are traumatized, they're not connected to community services or health services, and so they're spiraling, they're not well, they're not coping very well. And
they've been doing it all by themselves. In their own...
Exactly.
Basically treating their mind like a closet.
Yeah, exactly.
It goes in there and you shut the door and that's it.
You're done. And so what our wellness coordinator does is she works with that woman and builds a mental health wellness plan for them. And walks with them and connects them with whether it's our counseling programs that we do, or with the mental health supports in the community as well. And we've actually, through this wellness coordinator, have established a relationship with a local retired doctor who's maintained his license and comes and meets with our women on a weekly basis, because there's oftentimes the women that we serve don't have doctors. And so they can't get into the programs because they don't have a doctor. And so our wellness coordinator has magically created this relationship. And the shift in how a woman copes when they're connected to the right resources and wellness supports is night and day over a very short period of time. So when they come to their shelter, they know that they're seen, they know that they're not judged, and that they're going to be supported, and we are going to be with them until they stabilize.
Judgment has to be one of the biggest stigmas with abuse.
It is.
People don't want to be known as an abused wife, mother, daughter, whatever.
And I think because of that, they may blame themselves sometimes, and it's their
There's
fault
a big blame game in it, but there's again, it comes back to the psychological end of things. It's a manipulation. That's what abuse is. Whether they are physically pummeling another human being.
Oftentimes we worry more about the women who've experienced emotional and psychological abuse, more so than the women who
get bruises and bumps.
Right, because that's often the concrete evidence that women need that it's time to go.
Yes.
But there's so much that happens before that, right? And it's like that sort of, if you put a frog in cold water and you slowly turn up the temperature, they're not going to notice. It's similar in terms of abusive relationships. It's slow and incremental. And an abusive partner will deplete a woman's self-esteem to the point that they know that something's wrong. They know that they're not happy.
But
they
not
know
quite sure
that they're on edge. But they also believe, because the partner has taught them, that they're responsible for his behavior. Right? So if she doesn't get the food ready on time,
or the right food.
It's because she failed
Yeah.
and didn't do it right. It wasn't because of him, because he wouldn't get angry.
No. If she
just did it
If
right.
she just did it correctly.
Right?
Sounds devastating.
Yeah, and we're talking about women who
But it also
are,
sounds so simplistic to me sitting here.
Yeah.
But it happens every single day.
happens every day.
And you were telling me in 1 in 4 people that we
well, it's
know
one in 4 women who have been in their lifetime will have been assaulted in some shape or form, where criminal charges could be laid. But 1 in 2 women will, in some point of their life, experience an abusive relationship or be sexually assauded, right? And so it's a reality.
Are we just getting
Violence-
better at statistics, or is it escalating?
You know, I don't
that really
know.
frightens me.
It's probably a combination of both.
I think it's a combination.
Everything
There's
today is a combination.
Yeah, and there is a high percentage of women who won't report or won't talk about it, and incredibly strong women who are incredibly successful. We have provided service to women who are lawyers, women who are teachers, professionals of any kind, and those women are strong, and it takes a lot for them to come and call my friend's house because they just think that they just need to change things and
if I
everything
tweak
will
this,
be
if I
okay.
tweak that, it won't happen. But that's the same thing as someone who's never had a job but got married at 18 and lived with this for a long time. Probably says to themselves as well.
And I think another thing that we talked about off camera that's worth bringing up, Alison, is your mention of the fact that these hotlines and conversations that can be had can also be had by someone who knows someone who they believe is experiencing abuse in some way. And I think that's an important thing. If we know someone and not really sure how to do what to do about it, and we may think, well, if I start saying something, I might get her hurt.
Exactly.
If I speak up.
It's true, right? Because women are in control of their own safety, right? They know what they need to do in order to maintain their own safety. And if you, for instance, notice that, you know, I came to work with a black eye, or I was acting differently, and you had suspected something, if you ask me, is your partner abusing you? I'm probably going to lie to you because I don't know what you're going to do with that information. And you might call the police. You might go ahead and call my partner about it, and
Say,
I
hey,
will
knock
lose
it
control.
off.
And
thinking
so
you're helping.
And we do have a crisis line 24/7. And what we like to see is, so for people who are suspecting that somebody in their life might be abused, is call a crisis line first and strategize around how to approach the subject by saying, I'm just really concerned for you. You're changing your behavior. I'm not going to do anything without your permission.
Do you tell them that you're going to contact, or do you just contact to say, how can I deal with this topic? How can I talk to my friend?
I would say there seems to be a fear if you've told a friend what that friend might say, because if that circles back to your home life, things you might fear, or it might be a reality that violence will escalate, or those threats will turn into actual violence. Right, so you never know where this stands. So, I mean, I think that's probably, this crisis line is one of the most important things, just as I'm learning more and more about this, that can be used because of
it's a first step.
It's a first step to
many
get
different types
some
of
help
reasons.
for your friend without exposing it, because obviously the first thing you think is, oh, I'm going to go tell him that you better stop doing that.
I'll set him right.
And then I'll set him right, and the next thing you know, you leave.
It
He's like,
reflects badly.
I'm so sorry. You're right. I'll never do that. Door closes. Click.
You don't know what goes on.
Problem becomes worse. You ask your friend the next day, and they're like, "Thank you for helping," and it all went away. And they're like, "Shh, don't talk about it again, because it keeps getting worse when we talk about it." So I think sometimes talking about it is what escalates it.
Yep, absolutely.
And so then they don't talk about it.
And so what we tell people to do is just say, I believe that there's something wrong in your relationship. I will keep your confidentiality, but know that if you need anything or you want to talk about it, I am here. And then you just leave it at that, and you let the woman sit with it. She will decide.
Yes.
When
the time is right.
When the time is right. And it might not be for a year down the road, right? You just keep on saying, I'm worried for you.
Are we still in that patriarchal society where men will control money as a form of abuse?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, and in the modern world, there's technology abuse too, right? In that oftentimes.
Oh, now you're frightening me.
Well, partners put tracking devices on phones, and we've had the situations time and time again where he keeps on showing up, and I don't know why. We teach women who come into our shelter how to figure out whether or not there's a tracking device on your phone, so they can't find you at the shelter.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot more challenges.
Incredibly challenging. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing.
And it's what I'm hearing with that is that controlling thing.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably a lot of situations where it's a jealousy thing.
Yeah.
That is an insecure man or whatnot that is feeling jealous or unsure, so they want to make sure this woman does not do anything.
Exactly. Well, and he's pretty worried that the secret doesnn't get out too, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't, because he's got an image out there.
Yeah.
Right. And he's going to maintain, because there's often, when there's a horrible incident, a woman does get murdered, and you hear about it on the news, and every single time a neighbor will be interviewed as, he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody
or I had
knows.
no idea.
Nobody knows.
Yeah,
it happens in the home, and they're a different person in the home than they are in the community.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so isolating for the woman, because the woman knows he's a good guy. Who's going to believe me? And he's made her believe that, right? And that's why shelters are so important, because we are going to believe her.
Yeah.
Flat out. We're not going to question that, and we're going to work with her.
I think that's a good message about that. The shelter is going to believe you, regardless of the public perception and optics of who your husband may or may not be.
Exactly.
I think the same that's a comfort that might allow them to speak up.
Exactly. And they can be anonymous. We don't have call display on our phones. That's old school, but we don't have call display, and we don't trace phones. So a woman can call. She doesn't have to give us her name.
You have no tracking devices.
None of that. We have no tracking devices, right? So she can truly be anonymous, and she could call at 3 o'clock in the morning if she wanted to.
Do you have any statistics on how many times somebody reaches out before they actually may leave? Is there an average?
I don't know that statistic, but I do know a statistic that a woman will think about leaving about 40 times before she actually does.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a process.
It's a process.
And this could be sped up if that person is not afraid to talk to their friends, because you teach this language of confidentiality, that this is a safe place, and that friend is not going to do anything to escalate the problem, because I think there might be a fear of escalation, but also the confidentiality of talking to the crisis line at my friend's house directly, and even just getting advice on how to deal with it in the interim. How to plan an exit strategy.
Yeah. What is a safety plan? All of that. Yeah, exit strategy is incredibly
Safety
important.
plan and exit strategy. Two good points. When we come back after the break, I'd like to talk about those, because I need to better understand. So join us.
I belong here.
You may think I don't fit in.
That I don't look the part.
But to me, curling is more than a sport.
It's my community.
Together, we can sweep away the barriers.
Create spaces where we all belong.
And experience the joy of curling.
I belong here.
We belong here.
We unite. And united we curl.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
On Rogers TV.
Welcome back. This hour is traveling so quickly, and I'm so pleased to have Alison Fitzgerald, Executive Director from My Friend's House, and Chris Keleher, and I'm going to say it this way, a man, here talking about the importance of having our shelter in our community for women and children, and raising money for it. Okay, I'm going to be blatant. We need money.
And
awareness. So we've got 3 things. But just before the break, you were talking about a safety plan. What is a safety plan? And then what is an exit strategy?
Yeah. So for us, when a woman initially calls the shelter and they're thinking about leaving an abusive relationship and they've disclosed some abuse, is that what we do is we set out a safety plan that sort of talks about, okay, so where are your supports? Who can you talk to? Is there anybody you can talk to? When things get bad, what is your out? What are you going to do? And we talk to them about the risk of lethality, of that when he finds out that you're planning on leaving, that you are in more danger.
Because that's a heightened
It is
period.
a heightened risk for sure. And so a safety plan can be very different for every single woman. But what we do is, one of the most important things we do is we encourage them to create a go bag. So that if they need to go in the middle of the night, they have their stuff, they just go. They have a key hidden somewhere. They have a location that they can go to. Whether it's a friend, that kind of stuff. A safety plan might be if they
not the neighbor next door where he
not
watches
the neighbor
you
next
running
door,
across the lawn,
right? But they may have a plan with a friend or a family member where they can call them, and it's like, hey, do you want to come over for pizza or whatever it is, and then
even
that's a flag. Yeah, and that friend's now going to just pop over and say, hey, do you want to come out, and that's the out. So there are a lot of different safety plans depending on the woman. So we talk about that. We talk about if they need to use police, use them in order to get out of the situation, right? Because sometimes they do need that assistance. But ultimately, it's about planning their exit strategy and also looking for indicators as to when things are escalating and when the out is necessary, because she knows her partner better than anybody else, and so she knows what those triggers are, and if he's
and
behaving,
what the levels are
exactly. How is he behaving? What's his energy like when he comes home? Right? Does he come home and he doesn't speak and he grabs a beer and he's sitting in the front of the TV looking a certain way? And 10 times before, when that was happening, she got assaulted as a result. Like, she'll remember that stuff. So she knows if he comes in that way, it's time for her to go. So she's got to go get some milk or whatever it is, right? Or just walk to Tim Hortons and call us. And the agreement we have with every single woman, doesn't matter if we're full or not, is that any single woman we're working with where we're concerned about their safety, is we say, come anyway. Doesn't matter that we're full, we'll put you up, we'll, there'll be mattresses, there'll be couches, and then we'll figure out the answer the next day, whether it's going to another shelter, potentially a hotel.
So it really is a safe landing.
It is. It's a safe landing. And when women know that they have a place to go to, doesn't matter what time of the day, that's really reassuring to them, right? And that's why it's so important that we're open 24/7. And there is a counselor specially trained 24/7, ready to do the strategy with them.
How do you deal with the re-entry in those situations? Meaning, if I'm a woman, I have my spouse come home, crack a beer, and he's in one of those moods, and I'm like, oh, this could get rough. I've seen these patterns before. So I'm going to go to my friend's house, not specifically my friend's house, but
the other friend, yes.
Whatever the exit is. So you go over, you go to your neighbor's house, just like let things cool off. But when you were saying that, I was thinking, what kind of fear and terror comes with them when they're like, I got to re-enter this house? And I'm kind of afraid to. But if I don't re-enter the house, to let him maybe sober up or whatever, sleep up in the morning and I sleep over at a friend's house, is it going to be even worse then? So the re-entry sounds like something.
What were you doing?
We wouldn't recommend a re-entry. If it gets to that point where and you're leaving without his permission, it's an exit to exit.
Oh, okay. You're not just talking about, this seems like one of those moods that I'm going to avoid it. Like in all marriages, we have things like, whether it's your spouse or like your teenager, you're like, well, this could use some breathing room.
It's right? and in abusive relationships is that a woman always thinks that if she does the dance just a little differently, like she reads that he's on the edge, and so she tries to figure out how to appease him and calm him down.
What to do, what to cook, what to suggest.
Exactly, but the problem is the rules always change. So she can never know, and that term, walking on eggshells, right, is it because the rules are always going to change. So when she sees that he's on edge, and yes, she might get assaulted, she might just know that she has to deal with that because she's not quite ready to leave
Yeah.
yet. And that's why our work is so
Let's
important.
be really basic. Define assault. Physical?
Yep.
Sexual?
Yep.
Do we have to break something? Do we have to bleed?
No, you don't. You know, an assault for us is if he punches a wall. Or if he throws something, because that's a message to you. The next time it's going to be you.
Yeah.
Right? And so that is a physical assault because she's physically afraid.
And a psychological assault too.
It's a mental assault through a physical action that isn't direct towards them.
And it's to elicit fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
No matter what it is.
Whether it's a threat or an action that isn't
Yeah.
actually,
It's true.
you know.
It's true. And then psychological abuse can look like, you know, she's saying, you know what, I can't handle this anymore. And then he says, I'm going to kill myself. And so she goes, oh no. So then it's redirected.
You can't leave me. You can't leave me. Yeah.
There's no way she can be responsible for him killing herself, even though he's saying that to be manipulative, right? And to keep her here. So she backs down and accepts and takes it because she's terrified of him killing himself now.
As you're saying that and doing this, all I can think of is a gerbil on a wheel.
Yeah, yeah.
It's going around and it's running and it runs faster sometimes and it slows down sometimes. That's the cycle of abuse.
Yeah.
In a little critter.
Yeah, and then you're right. Then there's the good phase where he will even acknowledge that he's got to work on himself, and maybe he will for a little bit.
And that's part of the mental drawing back and the manipulation.
Yeah, the manipulation of charm. And
like maybe we should go on a holiday. Maybe we should do whatever. You know, we need to get away. I've been under so much pressure.
There's going to be a lot of hope as well. I mean, you're in a marriage for X number of years.
You loved him. You don't like what he does, but you love him, and you also see the pain in him. Right? So you take this responsibility that you want to nurture him and take care of him. If only I just loved him a little bit more and attended to his needs and was able to, then he'll feel better about himself, and then he won't abuse me.
Which is probably the nugget that all of the abuse building blocks are built on.
Absolutely. And then you have the kids. He's a really great father. He only abuses me.
He coaches
all the
Little League,
sports,
he does this, he does that, he goes to the school
How
concerts.
could I take this life away from my kids?
What will the kids think about me,
Yeah, exactly.
And I come back to money. It's a big change if you're in a so-called happy relationship to the real world, but it's not. And you leave, unless you've been salting away money for many, many years, your lifestyle will change dramatically.
Women are economically disadvantaged, right? But not all the time.
Not all the time. No.
Not all the time. It doesn't ring true all the time. There are so many reasons that are good reasons to stay in their minds. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so we, as a shelter, as an organization, we have to respect that and work with the woman where she's at, give her the supports, work on safety, work on her self-esteem, work on her confidence, work on whatever it is that she wants to work on. And like we might be working with a woman for 1 or 2 years before she decides, okay, now I'm ready.
Or I view the whole situation differently.
Exactly. Yeah. Unless our counselors determine that there's a significant safety issue for the children, where there's a legislative reportable issue, then it becomes a different matter.
So then who reports?
My friend's house staff are obligated to report.
Okay.
But what we will do when a woman is telling us what's happening in the home with the kids is that what we do is we strongly encourage her to make the report herself and ask for help herself.
Okay.
And oftentimes she does, and we will support her in that, right? Because it's really a scary thing to do. But Children's Aid Society connections in our area, they're an incredibly supportive organization, and they work in collaboration with us when we do have a mutual client to make sure that the kids are okay, make sure that they're in the programming, and make sure mom is getting the supports that she needs as well.
Okay. Interesting. So we're going to run out of time. We are going to run out of time. There's no doubt about it.
How much time we got left, Penny?
We got about 3 minutes.
Okay.
Three, magical 3. So I want to come back to, this is a major fundraising effort you have chosen to make. You've made the commitment.
Yep.
You've written the check for the airfare and the trekking.
And the trek. That's all paid up.
So you're all organized. We just need to raise you some money.
Yes.
So we go to your page.
Yep, you can go to my main website.
Is there a minimum donation? Is there a maximum donation?
No, I don't believe there's either of those. The $20 is what
gets you the gifts.
The tax.
The gift certificate. I was going to say the gift certificate.
Okay.
Counterproductive.
The tax receipt. Sorry.
But yeah, there's the link on on the screen there. So yeah, go there to donate. So this is something for my trek right now where 80% of the 20,000 will stay here. That's $16,000 to our local charity. And 4,000 goes national. There's our local charity at my friend's house. But I think beyond this, I think this is a great segment we can do. That this is not something that ends when my trek's over.
No. My friend's house has been here since 1991.
Yep.
It was well known that we needed it within the community prior to it happening.
Yep.
Abuse is nothing new.
Absolutely.
The types and the twists and turns of it have evolved.
Absolutely, especially with the technology piece that you have.
But the technology really does frighten me because
the tracking is a challenge, right? The tracking is a challenge. But
the tracking, or just the fact that we all carry a phone on our person, and unless you block certain numbers, you'll speak to someone.
Yeah.
So then you're set right back on your heels again because of something he may have said.
So I think what we want to talk about is the ongoing fundraising and need at my friend's house all year round, and the fundraisers they do, like the September 23rd one, Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, and then also the Royal LePage Shelter Foundation as a national charity, and just how much Royal LePage does for an organization like this and how much they support local charities. But this trek that happens every 2 years, there's a couple people in our community doing it. Doug Linton is another one. There's a third person that I can't.
Linda Murphy.
Linda Murphy's doing it now. That's right. So they came in
Murphy.
last minute. So there's 3 people in our community doing this. And
That's
this
pretty
just,
major.
It's just the Royal LePage spirit, right?
Yeah.
So if this little segment, Penny, and you can help me.
So if you let's put a challenge out there. You want to raise 20? How much? I wonder how much Doug and Linda want to raise. We could make my friend's house a lot of money.
Try to compete against each other. I don't know if I want to make a competition against my colleagues.
No.
But we do all have the intention of raising awareness and raising money. And I want to keep stressing that the awareness is important.
Yes.
And the more I can do with this trek before and after, with all the notes I've taken today, with our discussion just about what we should be bringing to light with people, whether it's the safety plan, the exit strategy, how the kids are impacted. And what might play a part.
And I promised we'd run out of time, and we have.
Oh, well.
So thank you, Alison.
Thanks for following on your promise.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
If you need help, get in touch with Alison's My Friend's House. You want to sponsor Chris? Just go online.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.